Hi, today I'll tell you whether now in 2023 is a good time or not to buy a house in Denmark. If you're thinking about buying a house or an apartment, this video will help you make a better and more informed decision. It's a whole new world, and here in Denmark in the last year alone we have seen interest rates go up from 1% to between 5 and 6%. On top of this, we have an unprecedented inflation and energy crisis, all while we still have under the wings a massive new house tax increase for apartments expected to kick in. In this context, my take is that no, right now in early 2023, while I'm recording this video, is not a good time to buy a house or an apartment in Denmark. I would wait. For most people, this is a call I would suggest you. There's only one exception, you could say so, where maybe it's still perhaps a good idea to buy, and that is if you're looking for an apartment in one of the big cities and plan to stay in that apartment for the long term. Because of this, again, new housing taxes, which I will explain later in the video, maybe it might make more sense for you to look for something now. But aside of that, no, wait. So the purpose of this video is to explain in detail this stake. If you're new here, my name is Mario and I am passionate about financial independence. In this channel, I help people living in Denmark to save money, invest well, and live an overall rich life. So in 2022, the market has cooled down and then peaked, and I mean the real estate market. We reached the top in spring, so that was around April, May that we reached the top of prices, and ever since prices stabilized, and then since late summer, prices have started to fall. So the prices ended the last year, so 2022, 6% lower than they started the year. So we already have a significant drop in prices. The capital region, so that's where Copenhagen sits, has been the hardest hit region, but price drops have been seen across the country, and both in terms of houses and apartments. And all indicators point that this is just the beginning of the fall, so that there's likely a lot more to come. Just look at these headlines from newspapers and industry sites. Denmark's housing market is the coolest since 2012 as sales drop. Home sellers give historically high price discounts. The share of homes sold by outbidding has been falling sharply in 2022. And again, for context, outbidding is that when an apartment, for example, is advertised as selling for 4 million and it's then sold for 4.1 or 4.2 because there's so much competition to get that property. That actually happened a lot during COVID, so good to see that that's maybe stopping. For context, I can share a personal anecdote here. Some of my smartest Danish friends, and it's not just one group of friends, bought expensive houses during the past year. When they saw that interest rates were coming up like the way they did, they just walked out of the deal and they paid the 1% penalty when you walk out of a deal before you move in, because they expect prices to come down big time. The interest rate whammy. It's easy to explain what has happened. Yes, we had unsustainable price increases after COVID. We had properties go up by 20% in just 1 year. So that had to stop at some point, but that's not really the key factor here. Most importantly, interest rates have gone up from under 1% or around 1% for 30 years fixed in January 2021 to between 5 and 6% by the end of 2022. In short, what this means in practice, in layman terms, is that to borrow money to buy a house, the cost of this borrowing has gone up by 5 times. So it has quintupled. Ouch. And all this in a context of slowing economy and a general macroeconomic uncertainty, when people don't know if there's a firing round coming in their company or their business is not doing as good as it used to do a few years back. But just to make a point of how interest rates impact you, let me explain you in detail. So let me illustrate how much this 1 to 5 or 6% hurts. When you were taking a mortgage for 30 years fixed at 1%, it costs you 10,000 krona per year to borrow that 1 million krona. Of course, there's some fees on top of that, there's some tax deductions, it's a bit more nuanced. Roughly speaking, as a ballpark, you could say that for borrowing 1 million, you'll need to then pay back, well, in terms of interest, each year 10,000 krona, which is, for 1 million krona, it's not that bad. Now, if interest rates go up to 5%, to borrow the same 1 million you would have borrowed for, again, 10,000 krona a month, you need to pay 50,000 krona. Again, 5 times more. Normally, when you buy a house, you need to borrow 2, 3, let's say 4 million. So let's say that you wanted to borrow 4 million krona. If you wanted to borrow 4 million krona before, it would cost you 40,000 krona per year. And now the same 4 million krona you would have got for 40,000 krona before will cost you 200,000 krona per year. And that's No, that's a big jump. I mean, it's not that people just have another 160,000 krona laying around, right? Especially since you don't get any better deal whatsoever for this money. You're paying for the same stuff. I would like to say in a way that it is money thrown into the garbage. Which means two things. You will not be able to afford, you and anyone, honestly, the most expensive apartments or houses, or let's say the higher end that you could have just a few years back or a few months back even, early 2022 for instance. It will be more expensive and thus risky again for banks to borrow you this amount of money, and they will be more picky. So if before they would borrow you 3 million krona, they will now borrow you less money. Like guaranteed, that's the way it is. On top of this, the interest-only loans that, for example, I found so interesting when I moved to Denmark, and which means that you only pay interest on your mortgage and you don't need to pay the mortgage back for 10 years. The moment you need to pay 200,000 krona in interest per year and not just 50,000, you know, that becomes less exciting, you could say. All this has and will have further on a high impact on prices, obviously, because there is less demand. There are less people that want to buy a home in this context, and there are less people that even if they want to buy, they just can't afford it. If a house will cost you 200,000 on interest alone, the pool of people that can afford that will be much smaller if that will only cost you 40,000. And less demand means houses will take longer to sell, then the buyers will have more options, and then buyers will become more picky and then can negotiate lower prices, which is again looping back to the same headlines I gave you just a few minutes ago. What to do in this context? I have a little model, or something simple to illustrate here why it's not a good time to buy it right now. And I'll draw this, right? So we're at a moment when interest rates are high. So we have high interest rates, and we also have high prices. They have gone down 6%, but prices are still high. What you want to do is that you want to have one of these two given before you buy. So either you want lower interest rates or you want lower prices. Both high interest rates and high prices over the medium and long term are just not sustainable. They just don't go very well with each other. There's definitely something that's not gonna happen. My hunch is here that prices will give in first. I mean, they have started to give in already. Interest rates, medium to long term, they should come down, maybe not to zero, but definitely they will not stay as high as they did now for a lot of macroeconomic reasons. But you could say that, yeah, soon enough we'll be back to between 2 and 4%. In the meantime, high prices are the ones to likely give in first, hence better to wait. Because one thing here as well to note is that once interest rates fall, so if prices fall and you still get a, let's say, a high interest rate mortgage, you can exchange that high interest rate mortgage to a, let's say, cheaper mortgage if the interest rates go down further in the future. It's a way of hacking the system in a way, and I explained that in a deep dive report that's gonna be linked down in the video description. But the gist of this is that yes, it's possible to then, if you fix something at 5% now, not so good, but then 2 years from now the interest rates go down to 3%, then you can of course change that as well. Also, if you want to learn more about buying an apartment in Denmark and overall how to achieve financial independence here in Scandinavia, hit the subscribe button below and you'll get access to my future videos. I post new videos every single week. The exception, I alluded to this earlier in the video, but there's one case, just one case, where it might make sense to buy now and not wait. And that is if you want to buy an apartment in one of the big cities like Copenhagen or Aarhus, and you plan to do it for the medium and long term. So you're not planning to stay in the apartment for 1 year or 2 years. You plan to stay longer. They have new property taxes that in theory will kick in 2024. There's a bit of a scandal as I record this video if we are gonna be ready or not. What these taxes mean is that in practice, the cost of living in one of the big cities is expected to rise substantially. These new taxes will apply for all types of housing, but the gist is that houses taxes will fall, so the taxes for houses will fall, and then for apartment they're most likely going up. We don't know by how much they're gonna fall and by how much they're gonna go up. We have indications, but the exact numbers are not clear. And once again, on top of high interest rates, you will also have these high taxes. That's not so nice. The catch and the key thing here is that so long you have bought your apartment before this law takes into effect in January 2024, you will not have to pay these taxes. So for instance, I have this house, I'm sure my taxes would go substantially up in this apartment once the new law is in, but because I was living in the house before the law went into effect, I don't need to pay these taxes. If I would move out, or if anyone would move out of the house and move in, whenever you go to a new place that you have bought, then yes, you need to start paying the new taxes. So if I decide to move to one of the apartments over here, after 2024, I'll start having to pay these higher taxes. And again, just like with interest rates, you will not get better service or anything. You're just gonna spend more money out of your pocket to have the same thing you could have bought cheaper, or you could have lived on cheaper just a few years back. But the caveat here, what makes this especially nasty, is that while you are able to pay back your loan if you are doing well, or you can renegotiate interest rates down, you will not be able to do anything about your taxes. You're like in all cases, right? So that means obviously that prices of the apartments in the big cities are going likely to fall even more. But let's see next year how things develop. Also, something to consider here is that a lot of people will be a lot less willing to sell when you know that when you move to a new place, you'll have to pay a lot more than what you're doing now. My take here is that, for instance, myself, is that if I would see my dream apartment up for sale and the price is reasonable and I can negotiate a little bit, I would buy this year. Again, assuming I would stay here in Denmark for the long term. So if there's something I absolutely love, I would still buy if it's an apartment. And I need to check the calculations of how much taxes more I would pay, depends on the property, of course. But you just need to look into this angle before and after. Fixed cost, not something that you want. If you can avoid it for the long term, that's critical. And speaking about fixed costs, check this video out where I share my best tips on how to save money in Denmark. Thank you for watching and talk to you again next week.